Ladies and gentlemen, I am not here to tell you how to be happy. That would be far too difficult, far too subjective, and frankly, most people would not listen anyway. But I can tell you something much easier. I can tell you how to guarantee a life of misery. And I do not mean theoretical misery. I mean the real thing, the kind that compounds quietly day after day until one morning you wake up and realize you have built a perfectly designed disaster. Most people approach life by asking, how do I succeed? That is a fine question and a useless one. The better question is, how could I fail with absolute certainty? Because if you simply avoid the obvious ways to ruin your life, success, or at least a tolerable existence, has a remarkable tendency to follow. This way of thinking is called inversion. Invert, always invert. Let us begin with the most efficient misery generator ever invented. If you want to be miserable, ingest chemicals to alter your mood or perception. Alcohol, drugs, anything that hands control of your brain to a substance that does not care about you. I have lived long enough to watch this experiment run thousands of times. The result is always the same. Of the 4 closest friends of my youth, intelligent, ethical, charming people, 2 are dead with alcohol as a contributing factor. A third is a living alcoholic, if you want to call that living. Addiction does not arrive announcing itself. It arrives quietly. The chains are too light to feel until they are too strong to break. I have never met anyone whose life was ruined by over-avoiding addiction, but I have met countless people who assumed they were immune. They were wrong. If chemicals are not your style, do not worry. Misery has many entry points. The next one is envy. Envy is particularly useful because it works on everyone. It does not matter how successful you are. Someone else always has more. Envy predates civilization. It was causing havoc long before it earned a starring role in the laws of Moses. If you wish to stay miserable, I recommend constant comparison. Measure your life not by what you have, but by what others appear to have. And if you want to strengthen envy even further, avoid reading biographies of people who transcended it, especially someone like Samuel Johnson, whose life demonstrates quite inconveniently that envy can be conquered. And that would be very bad for your misery. Now let us talk about one of my personal favorites, resentment. Resentment is marvelous. It is like swallowing poison and hoping someone else dies. I have tested resentment extensively. It has worked perfectly every time. Life is hard enough to swallow without squeezing in the bitter rind of resentment. And yet people do it every day enthusiastically. If you really want to excel at this, refuse forgiveness entirely. Rehearse old wrongs. Relive past insults. There was a fellow named Disraeli who made a partial improvement. He gave up vengeance as a motivation but retained a list of people who wronged him. From time to time he reviewed it and took pleasure in noticing how the world had taken his enemies down without his assistance. Even that compromise reduced misery somewhat, so I do not recommend it if your goal is maximum suffering. Now we move to one of the most powerful misery multipliers of all, be unreliable. If you master this one habit, it will more than counterbalance all your virtues, however great. Do not do what you said you would do. Be late. Break promises. Explain why it was not really your fault. If you enjoy being distrusted, excluded, and quietly passed over, this is the path for you. You will play the role of the hare in the fable, except instead of being beaten by one turtle, you will be outrun by hordes of mediocre turtles, some of them on crutches. I once had a college roommate who was severely dyslexic, but he was the most reliable man I have ever known. Today he has had a wonderful life so far, a great family and leadership of a multi-billion-dollar corporation. If you want to avoid outcomes like that, unreliability works beautifully. Next, a guaranteed path to misery. Insist on learning everything only from your own experience. This is a catastrophic idea and wildly popular. Look around. Human disasters are remarkably unoriginal. Drunk driving, financial ruin, incurable diseases, business failures caused by repeating obvious mistakes, crowd folly, and self-inflicted destruction. All thoroughly documented. All repeated endlessly. There is a modern saying that captures this mindset perfectly. If at first you do not succeed, well, so much for hang gliding. If you really want to deepen this mistake, avoid studying the best work done before you. Become as non-educated as you reasonably can. There once was a man who, struggled badly with analytic geometry, but assiduously mastered the work of his predecessors. Later, he said, "If I have seen farther than others, it is because I stood on the shoulders of giants." That man was Isaac Newton. If your aim is misery, ignore people like him completely. Another excellent prescription. When you suffer your first, second, or third severe reverse in the battle of life, stay down. Life contains a great deal of adversity, even for the intelligent and lucky. Permanent discouragement guarantees permanent failure. Ignore the lesson of Epictetus, born a slave, maimed in body, impoverished, and yet favored by the gods. Quitting early is efficient misery. Now we arrive at the intellectual core. If you want fuzzy thinking and infelicity, cling fiercely to your own ideas. Treat disconfirming evidence as a personal insult. Most people do this naturally. They reach an early conclusion and then spend the rest of their lives defending it. Philip Wiley describes such people perfectly. You could not squeeze a dime between what they already know and what they will never learn. Contrast this with Charles Darwin. Not the brightest student of his class, but relentlessly objective. Darwin gave priority attention to evidence that contradicted his beliefs. Einstein did the same. Their secret was not brilliance. It was curiosity, perseverance, and self-criticism. If you avoid objectivity, you avoid truth, and you guarantee misery, not just in science, but in business, relationships, and life. Let me end with a story. A rustic once said, "I wish I knew where I was going to die, and then I would never go there." People laugh at that. They should not. That is inversion perfectly expressed. Instead of asking how to succeed, ask how to fail, and then do not do those things. That was Johnny Carson's method. It was Jacoby's method. It is my method, and it works. So let me offer you a backward toast for a backward talk. May you rise high by spending each day of a long life aiming low. Avoid stupidity. Avoid irreversible damage. Avoid self-inflicted misery. Do that, and you will be astonished how well things tend to turn out. Thank you.